Hello everybody and welcome to another gear talk, and this time I'm going to talk to you about the Pentax K1 Mark II, and this will be kind of a full review after my first initial 48 hours. Before we begin, as usual, if you want to support the channel, please put a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends, share on social media. And if you want to go a step further, check out the link in the description and go to my website. You can find my books, Inkjet Fine Art Printing, Photography Depth Manual, everything you need to know about photography, and Lasting Photographs, a novel with a photographic plot and beautiful reviews online. The Pentax K1 Mark II. I had this camera to test from the Italian importer Fowa of Pentax. It was I had the Pentax KF to test. You can see the review here, and after that there was a moment of pause between the KF and the new monochrome that I will have to test. I don't know when you will see this video, but while I'm recording I will go tomorrow to get the Pentax monochrome. So I had some time between them, and I asked them. I never tested well. I just tried the Pentax K1 in a trade show, and I would love to test it. So they were kind. They gave me this camera. I had it for 3 months almost, and I fall in love with this camera. It's absolutely a fantastic camera. And by the way, here I don't want to give you the classic review with all the specification and all the kind of things. You can find everything already online. Here I want to give you what is my personal feeling about this camera, what was my personal experience. Here a little slideshow of the images I took with this camera. I used different lenses. I used the 85 1.4, I used the 50 1.4 that is on the camera, I used the 31 limited, so kind of different lenses, and I use a lot of my old manual lenses, the 100 macro, 20mm, 28, 35, and so on. I like to use old lenses on modern cameras. And so here's the slideshow, and we will talk about the camera a little bit more after the slideshow. As you can see, I had fun with this camera. I used it in different ways and I love this camera. The results, the image quality, in my opinion, is absolutely fantastic. I really like this sensor and I like it because I have an habit. When I use the cameras, something that I do not like at all is to see the sharpness that is. I define it cut with an axe, so you see the very square pixel that some artificial sharpness. With this camera, you can put the slider of the sharpness on your software to zero, absolutely to zero, and you can enjoy absolutely resolution and sharpness in the camera. You can see a ton of details without seeing that very hard passage from one pixel to the other. This camera doesn't have the anti-alias filter, and that's something great because you have exactly what the sensor see. When you have an anti-alias filter, usually the filter makes the image a little bit softer and then it makes it sharp again with the software. It needs to have some sharpening in the software. Without the anti-alias filter, you can avoid the sharpening, and so the image comes out absolutely natural. It's the kind of sharpness where you see all the details, you have a lot of resolution in the image, but you don't have that hardness that is artificial. So I loved really the results of this camera. And something that I loved about this camera, really made me feel great, is the ergonomic of the camera is absolutely fantastic. It's a nice body, nice weight in the hands that gives some, you feel it's stable, there's some inertia, so you feel the camera very stable, and it's just a great experience. An optical viewfinder, a reflex, I used mostly mirrorless or rangefinder in the last years, and really I love the optical viewfinder. I love to have a reflex with this quality of viewfinder. So absolutely fantastic experience. By the way, the weather sealing in this camera is so good that you really don't have to worry about any weather. It's really solid, it's really well built. It's really, really a great camera. To use it, there's one thing. It's a very complex camera with a lot of features. So you have to study your manual, you have to decide how you like to use the camera, and then you have to create your user settings. Luckily, there are 5 user settings, so once you create them, it's very easy to use. You can set the camera as I like it, for example, in a very simple way, and that gives you this fantastic feeling to have a camera that is almost not there. You don't have to think about the camera, you think about the photograph, and you know that the camera is doing the right thing because you have the user setting and you are sure that you didn't forget some parameters and so on in the camera. So absolutely a great experience for this. Something that I absolutely loved is this LCD. This system for the LCD is absolutely fantastic. Is absolutely solid, is absolutely sturdy, so you don't have to worry about hitting the LCD while you are doing something else, especially if you took pictures at night on the tripod. You don't have to worry about hitting it or something like that. It's just solid. Absolutely, the construction is fantastic, and I like how it moves, the position that you can put the LCD to. So I hope to see this on other Pentax bodies because this is really great. I know that gives some thickness, adds some thickness compared to other kind of flipping LCD, but this for me is absolutely the best system I ever had in my hands, so I loved it. I said ergonomic, all the buttons are in the right place. I love this gear here that let me set what I can select with this other gear here. For example, I have here usually put on ISO, so I don't have to go in menus, I just can move the ISO, shutter speed and aperture, and I'm okay. a lot of functions here, and that is absolutely great. Something I appreciate also as ergonomic are the buttons here for the IF mode. That is very easy to click and select on the back with the menu, with the little wheel here. Another button that I really appreciate is the lock button here. Is a great position. You're with the camera like that and you decide lock, unlock, and that's perfect. So really nice, really nice feature of the camera. And I love to have the ability to lock all the buttons because I don't know, probably I'm clumsy or something like that, but I always push some button that I don't have to push when I'm going around. So the lock button is something great, and it's great that it's here in front of the camera, so I know where it is. It's easy to feel with your fingers. It's the last button there, so it's really a great position. At the end of the game, I really love this camera. Something that you can see here is that this camera is great at high ISO. It's the first camera. I always say when I do the reviews that I don't expect anything decent on a camera over 3200 or 6400 ISO. With this camera I really saw high quality also at higher levels, and you can see here in this picture that you can go really up with your ISO without problems. By the way, this camera is something that fantastic. That is the pixel shift system. So you have the sensor that shifts around, and you can avoid with that the need of all the demosaicization of the Bayer pattern. Because you will have a triplet RGB for every pixel, and that is a fantastic option. It really gives a lot in terms of color, in terms of sharpness and so on, and especially gives a lot if you go to make prints. And something that is really great to use if you want to use high ISO and you have a subject that is fixed enough, you can use the pixel shift and noise disappear. And disappear because obviously you have, for the luminosity, you have an average of 4 images for every pixel. So that is really a plus that I didn't know about it. But it's really nice. You can go high ISO, and with the pixel shift, the noise really disappears. That's fantastic. Another thing that I love about this camera is the integrated GPS and the astro tracer. I didn't do much of astronomical photography for one reason. I live in a place where if the sky is clear, especially in this season that is late winter or spring, if the sky is clear, it's freaking cold, and I don't like cold. And if it's warm, usually there's a little bit of haze. So at the end of the game is like my telescope that I bought years ago, and it gets used a couple of times a year and no more. So but it's a beautiful function to have. It's really a beautiful camera to have. It's something really great that I appreciate. So the astro tracer needs the GPS that can be used also obviously to record the position of the pictures, and that is something great if you go around take pictures. I like to get side roads and this kind of things. I see a beautiful place, I take pictures. Sometimes I think I have to come back at another time of the day or with another sky and so on. And in the case, it's perfect to just turn on the GPS and have the coordinates, so you can put them in a map and remember exactly where was the spot. I was used to do that with the little Garmin, very cheap $99 Garmin that I had. That was just push the viewpoint and then so you remember where you are, but it's not connected to the image. So to have the GPS integrated is really great. The Astro Tracer, I would love to see the version, the evolved version that is in the K3 Mark III, I think is right now, and because this is good, but there's a problem. It's very sensitive to metallic stuffs around. So, for example, from the balcony, there's the rail of the balcony that really lower the precision. It's used the GPS and it uses also a compass inside. So the compass get distracted by metallic things. Also, if you have a tripod that is heavy metallic, that can be a problem. So I love the Astro Tracer, and I would love to see the evolved version of it, because it can be a little bit difficult to use sometimes, but it's absolutely a great function that I appreciated. All the other things, great camera, it's Wi-Fi and all these kind of things. This image stabilization is another thing that is fantastic. You can really use, you can gain 5 stops without any problem. So the stabilizer is fantastic. It works also with all the lenses. It's great. So at the end of the game, it's a camera that you can hear a lot online already, because it's a couple of years that the camera is around, but it's absolutely a fantastic camera. My experience is that now I have to give this camera back, but I would love to find one to keep, because it's absolutely a beautiful experience to use this camera. I have no other ways to describe it. I just loved it. I'm used to Pentax. I started with Pentax with film. With digital, I had some Pentax. Then I shift system, because Pentax was late to came out with the full frame, and I like wide-angle photographs. And so for a while, I was with mirrorless. I don't like that. I like beautiful reflex viewfinder, and to have this camera made me back to, okay, now I can photograph in the way I want and I like. It's something that is kind of really great for me. Another thing that I loved about this camera is really user-friendly. It has everything you need. And for example, something that I love is the light here that turns on the LCD display, but puts a light here to so you can see your lens at night, and most of all, it puts the LED back here, and you can see all the buttons in the dark. This is another thing that is perfect. You should do night photography or on a tripod or something like that. This is fantastic. You just have all the lights that you need and everything that is personalized and is absolutely beautiful. There are all these details, all these little things that really make you feel that this camera is built thinking about the photographer. There are cameras that pretend that you adapt to the camera. In the case of Pentax, the camera adapts to you. You can personalize. The problem is you really have to read the manual and play for a couple of days with the camera before you know everything and you personalize your camera in the way you want. But once it's done, this is the camera that you can forget. You can just go around, you know that the camera will do exactly what you want, and you don't have to worry about going in menus and so on. By the way, this display here that shows everything, it can be turned off, and it can show also something like the level or the compass and so on. At the beginning, I really disliked this bright display there with all this information. Using it is fantastic. I pretend to not be old, but I sometimes need glasses to read something that is close to my face. So to have this display that shows everything bright with big fonts, big characters, it's really nice. It's makes everything easy, and you just push a button and the display is off. So it's really a nice feature to have. It's something that, again, being Pentax is something that is very user friendly, and here you really, with this camera, you really appreciate the Pentax philosophy. It's a camera that is not for filmmakers, it's a camera that is not trying to emulate a smartphone and so on. It's a camera for photographers. If you are a photographer, what you want is something that you can control perfectly, never give surprise. This is fantastic. The autofocus, I heard a lot of people complain about the autofocus, but I don't do sport photography, so for what I do, the autofocus is absolutely perfect, is precise, is fast enough, and so on. So I don't have I didn't have problem with the autofocus. And by the way, I like to use also manual focal lenses, so that's not my problem. What I would love to see improved in another version of this camera is the screen, the focus screen. I would love to see the option to change it and have the user changing it. And for this reason, I like to use manual lenses. This focus screen is good for manual focus, but it's not perfect. Sometimes you are not very sure where is the focus, then you understand it, but there's a little effort more. I would love to see a focusing screen that is more built for manual focus, and I would love to have the option to change the focus screen myself and go from the classic one to something that is more adapted for manual focus. Another thing that I would love to see is to not have, when I show the grid, to not have the diagonal lines. I don't know if it's an option that I can take off. I didn't find the option to take off the diagonal lines, and I don't like the diagonal lines. They distract me, but I like to have the grid often when I take architecture or things like that, and also because I tend to tilt the horizon. Yes, there's a function here to level the horizon and all these kind of things. I didn't went deep on these things. A camera for me is something that must be aperture, ISO, and shutter speed, and nothing more. And with this camera, is like that. By the way, the exposure meter, fantastic, it works always well. You have the usual spot, the medium with average, and the complex matrix exposure meter. I used it automatic a lot of time, and it always was great. Something that I will want to see improved, and something I don't know if Pentax will ever do it, but now to use your manual lenses, you have to measure the exposure pushing this green button because it stops down the lens. I would love to see modern Pentax camera with still a system to read the aperture here of the lens on the manual lenses, and so to have coupled with the exposure meter. I don't know why they didn't do that. I think it's just can be just a little resistance that send a value to the camera, but I would love to see that because I love to use old manual lenses. So that's something that I would love to see on another K1 Mark III. But this is absolutely a fantastic, great camera, and I really fell in love with this camera. And now my problem is that I want one, and the camera costs money, so that will be a problem. This is my full review. I hope you enjoyed it. It was not much technical, it was more my impression. And let me know what you think about it. And please, if you want to support the channel, subscribe, share with your friends, and put on the social media and so on. Put a like and so on. Check out my books, check out my website. You can subscribe to the newsletter. The link is down there in the description. And see you next time with another camera and other lenses and so on. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.